Christmas 2002 was a wild time to be a true crime fan. When Laci Peterson and her unborn child went missing on December 24th of that year, the story quickly went national. Of course, this was before smartphones, podcasts, and social media, at a time when everyone more or less watched the same channels and consumed the same content. Something similar happened in 2005 when 18-year-old Natalee Holloway went missing during a post-graduation trip to Aruba. 3 years later, 2-year-old Kaylee Anthony disappeared, triggering yet another sensationalized news cycle. Today, the Nancy Guthrie case takes center stage. Such cases with dramatic details between suspects, affairs, kidnappings, and alibis serve as bait for the zombie piranhas of the media lagoon. But such cases spark socio-political debate. Coined as missing white woman syndrome, these tragedies serve as evidence for some that Americans prioritize stories of missing white people, particularly attractive, well-to-do women, while ignoring the many people of minority communities. Jon Stewart once satirized this mathematically. Let's make sure we get our order of operations right here. Abductee cuteness divided by skin color multiplied by family income squared plus length of abduction times media savvy of grieving parents cubed. That's the first time I've had to do that for a long time. But is this so-called missing white woman syndrome a product of systemic racism? After digging into the scripts, I found the media suffers from something far more serious. Thanks for stopping by NPC Overrider, where we challenge mainstream source code to develop independent thought, one user story at a time. Today we're playing Ace Combat 3 on the original PlayStation. Grab yourself an F-16 and let's check out the latest programming. Alright, let's look at the first code block here. What drives coverage? Relatability, entertainment, and logistics. The media has a simple mission these days. Relate to as many people as possible to increase viewership and sell ads. Who traditionally watches the news in the US? Mostly middle to upper middle class white people. How can the media best relate to those viewers? Cover stories about middle to upper middle class white people. Viewers become interested not because they feel their fellow whites are more important, but because they compare these cases to their own lives. Were the parents at fault? How can I prevent this from happening to me or my family? What resources would I have available if something like this happened to me or my family? Then there's the entertainment angle, as bad as that sounds. A story about a missing, pregnant, married wife with a husband as the main suspect who dyes his hair and attempts to escape to Mexico with bags of cash while having an affair with a blonde is far more entertaining than a custody dispute with a mother or father that keeps their kid for longer than the courts allow and that kid gets reported as an Amber Alert, be they white or black. We also have to consider the logistic. With about 600,000 people going missing in the US each year, we can't expect the media to cover them all. But let's look at a few case specifics to better diagnose this, quote, missing white woman syndrome. Alright, block 2, cases that could expose deeper issues but get sidelined. Let's do something wild and consider other factors than surface level arguments about skin color, income, or victim attractiveness. Around the time of Laci Peterson's disappearance, another woman, Evelyn Hernandez, dubbed as the other Laci Peterson by the media, vanished but got nowhere near the attention that Laci's case did. Let's look at a few factual similarities and differences between the cases that might suggest a disparity in media coverage. Alright, here's a few similarities. Both were pregnant in their 20s, nearing full term. Both vanished from their homes in the San Francisco area. Remains of both victims with their unborn fetuses washed up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Both occurred in 2002. Cause of death is debated in both cases. Here's some differences. Laci was married and living in the suburbs, working as a substitute teacher with a stable family and no prior children or marriages. Evelyn was a single mother on disability living in an apartment with a 5-year-old from a previous marriage. Laci disappeared on Christmas Eve, which added emotional weight and media appeal. Evelyn disappeared in early May. Laci's killer was caught, tried, and convicted, sentenced to life in prison after a lengthy and spicy trial, which provided a ton of juicy content for the media. Evelyn's case remains cold. Laci's mom wrote a book. Laci's family advocated for Laci in Connor's Law, also known as the Unborn Victims of Violence Act of 2004, which recognizes unborn babies as separate victims in violent crimes. Something tells me that the people that complain of missing white woman syndrome wouldn't exactly advocate for that type of legislation. Now, of course, none of this is to suggest that Evelyn deserved what happened to her or that her family and nobody cared about her. That's not what I'm saying. But Laci's case was far more relatable to viewers and much more dynamic with multiple angles that talking heads could chew on for hours, months, or years as they did in Laci Peterson's case. Evelyn's case simply lacked these factors. We see something similar when comparing Natalee Holloway, the 18-year-old who went missing in 2005 in Aruba while on a graduation trip, and Latoya Figueroa, a pregnant woman who also went missing in 2005 after failing to show up for work. Okay, here's the similarities. Again, both women were young and both were described as attractive with vibrant personalities. Both vanished suddenly under mysterious circumstances with no witnesses or clear evidence at first, and foul play was suspected in both cases. Persons of interest in both cases were current or potential potential romantic interests, as reported, and both were murdered. All right, let's look at some differences here. Natalee Holloway was a white, blue-eyed blonde from a stable home, although her parents divorced when she was 5. She was a member of the Honor Society, dance squad, and other extracurricular activities, and she planned to attend the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. Latoya was a black and Hispanic working-class single mother raised by relatives after her own mother was murdered when Latoya was a toddler. Natalee disappeared on a graduation trip out of country. Latoya disappeared after a doctor's visit. Natalee's body was never found, and the case dragged on for years until the killer confessed in 2023. With almost 20 years of tips and constant case updates, this allowed for continued coverage. Latoya's case was quickly solved. Shortly after she was found, her killer was sentenced to 2 life sentences the next year, thanks to legislation such as Laci and Connor's Law. Natalee vanished under mysterious circumstances. Reports say Latoya's boyfriend murdered her after she refused to get an abortion. Natalee's story, framed as trouble in paradise with thriller elements that sounded like it could have been a plot to a movie. Latoya's case was framed more as a domestic tragedy and a continuance of generational trauma within the family. It's easy to see that there's many more factors here than skin color. Now let's look at this from another angle. Have you ever heard of Tiffany Witten? She was a young, attractive white woman who mysteriously went missing after being caught shoplifting at a Walmart at 2 a.m. in Marietta, Georgia back in 2013. But surrounding circumstances such as drug addiction, criminal activity, tattoos, and a chaotic relationship with her boyfriend didn't make her a top candidate for national coverage. How about Amanda DeGio? Amanda, a young blue-eyed white woman, went missing in 2014. But again, her opiate addiction, tattoos, and reported bipolar disorder made her unrelatable to most viewers. Does Abby Lynn Patterson ring a bell? Surprise, she had a reported drug problem as well and apparently was just released from a drug recovery program. Still, she got no national news coverage despite being a white, attractive young female. She doesn't even have a Wikipedia entry. Or you can scroll through the FBI database of missing people or the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and you can see the countless white people, women, people in general that are missing, and let me know how many of them you recall seeing on Good Morning America. Still, if we dig deeper into this media programming, there's more at play. Hey, I've got some pretty abysmal analytics for this channel. It seems to keep going down and down and down, and it's easy to blame algorithms and censorship and the AI avalanche of 2025 taking our jobs. But I also know that I'm new at this, and I'm just kind of learning as I go. So if there's any actual humans out there that are seeing this and made it this far, which again, the analytics show that nobody's probably watching to this point, if you just let me know what you think. Is it a creative problem? Am I not coming across clearly? Do I have technical issues? Is it hard to understand what I'm trying to convey? Is it just boring because so many other creators are whizzes and have much cooler effects? Just let me know in the comments if what you think, please. I'd appreciate it. But I get the feeling that nobody's watching this, so, that's okay. We have fun. All right, code block 3, the ignored roots and the media's role in hiding them. Now, some of you might be thinking, if anybody is actually watching this, Greg, you're always saying the corporate press are the bad guys. Why are you suddenly sticking up for them now? Well, I'm not. I might not think that missing white woman syndrome is a real thing, but I do think something more serious ails the mainstream media. Evelyn Hernandez was a teenage mom, a single mother, involved with a married man who was not her child's father. As mentioned, Latoya Figueroa's mother was killed when she was 2, then her grandmother and cousin raised her, and then her grandmother died while Latoya was in high school. Tiffany Witten, Amanda DeGio, and Abby Lynn Patterson, while all young, white, and attractive females, had drug problems, rocky paths, and toxic relationships, which disqualified them from national coverage. But it's not just about relatability, entertainment, and sensationalism. The corporate press doesn't want to highlight what's really wrong with this country. Radical progressivism, broken homes, drug abuse, violence, abandonment of traditional values, much of it boiling over in blue cities like Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago, all create stories similar to Evelyn and Latoya's. The media doesn't want to highlight that. When's the last time you saw a candlelight vigil in Chicago after a gang shootout? Now, tragedy might strike anyone at any time. We see this with Laci and Natalee's cases. But chances are, people living with traditional values, stable homes, and communities, most people will not become victims. Covering stories like those of Evelyn Hernandez and Latoya Figueroa shows that their fates aren't the fault of the white man, systemic racism, or the patriarchy. They prove that breaking from tradition and promoting extreme progressive policies are not only failing, but also further damaging minority communities. All right, let's dig into the final patch and wrap up. I think it's safe to file missing white woman syndrome away with other fictional diseases like Captain Trips from The Stand. the T-virus from Resident Evil, or the Crippen virus from I Am Legend. But just a few more questions to noodle on before we patch up this NPC code. Why are missing person cases the only place where social justice warriors demand equal coverage? The media ignores the countless shootings in places like Chicago that occur weekly, yet turn into flies on garbage when a white male shoots up a school. Anybody complaining of white shooter syndrome? Black and brown men, many legal citizens, many not, kill white people on the regular for no reason, and the media can't be bothered to cover those stories at length. Anyone searching for white victim syndrome on WebMD? Black and brown people are also violently raped, maimed, and murdered at the hands of other black and brown people. Any Forbes writers out there reporting on brown victim syndrome? Whites and members of every race on planet Earth have been enslaved, yet such facts don't appear often in articles or documentaries. Anybody at the New York Times writing about black enslavement syndrome? I sure didn't see any problem with the media endlessly covering Breonna Williams, George Floyd, or Michael Brown. But where's the wall-to-wall coverage for the lack of coverage for the deaths of people like Jamil Shaw Jr., Liam Cantu, Ivory Smith, Dakara Thompson, or Malcolm Goodchild, just to name a few? Maybe if a quote right-wing extremist or a cop killed him, but since illegal criminal aliens took their lives, we hear silence. The media swarms stories like the Buffalo supermarket shooting, the Pulse nightclub massacre, and the Charleston church shooting. Yet the Nashville Christian school, the Minneapolis church shooting, and most recently the Tumbler Ridge shooting in Canada, not so much. Anyone reporting cis male shooter syndrome? The media loved pushing the Ukraine war, yet there was no outrage from the legacy media when Irina Zarutska, one of the few people with a genuine asylum claim by the way, was stabbed in the neck by an insane black man. Palestinian support was all the craze, yet no mention of Arafat Beji, Samineh Mirdzai, Mahdi Zatpavar, Robina Aminian, Ibrahim Yousefi, or the countless Iranians slain by the regime. Not to mention the ever-growing number of Christians killed in places like Nigeria. Heard of Pradeep Tamang, Annabelle Morales Aponte, or Terry L. Bennett? They're all black or brown, and they're all dead. But they're cops, and nobody's complaining of white civilian syndrome. Is this starting to make more sense now? The people complaining of coverage inequality don't give two rips about any of these victims, be they white, black, or otherwise. It's all politics. Missing white woman syndrome is just another genetically modified strain spun up in the progressive wet markets of academia, the corporate press, and globalist elites to push their communist agenda. But what do you think? Do you think there's any legitimacy to the missing white woman syndrome? Let me know below. Well, that's going to do it for this version of NPC Overrider. I'm your lead engineer, Greg. All references are available through the release notes, or they will be soon. If you want to help me save the NPCs, please set the like button to true and open up a ticket in the comments section if you have an idea for a future release. But for now, we're going to shut down and grab a beer.